Hey, beautiful beings. Welcome in. And on today's YouTube video, we have the fabulous Phil Searing joining us today. Welcome in, Phil.
Hi.
So Phil is a mental health nurse, a founding member of the British Psychedelic Association, and a violinist with the King's Gambit. And before we start, Phil, I have to say, right, I'm really embarrassed because I thought the King's Gambit was like a Netflix equivalent of the Queen's Gambit. So I was like, wow, you've been in this orchestra for this Netflix documentary as well. But it's a band,
No.
isn't it?
But we all like the I think most of us have watched the Queen's Gambit, and I think they mention King's Gambit in the Queen's Gambit because it's, you know, obviously a chess move. Well,
Yeah.
it's obvious, but nothing to do with the band's, nothing to do with the program.
No. I realized that afterwards. So Phil, so we connected a few weeks ago and you shared some of your journey and your story with me, which I thought was really interesting and would be sort of like really valuable for some of the guys who watch my YouTube channel and who would be interested in it. So do you want to sort of give us sort of like the beginning of where your sort of like spiritual journey, if you like, where it started for you?
Yeah, sure. How far back do I go? So, I mean, I was brought up Christian, just in the Baptist church in Bedford, and then that was my sort of first sort of understanding, I suppose, of spirituality. Not that I really saw it as spirituality, I just saw it as the absolute truth. I was quite I suppose an obedient, very trusting child, believed pretty much everything my mother said, which I think is a good thing, you know, evolutionarily. It's keeps you safe, doesn't it? But just I suppose got into my teenage years, still, you know, early teens, still very much like believing in God, and the Christian version of events. What happened then? I continue to believe, and I mean, I remember like friends taking the piss out of me, because, you know, like bless my mum, like she's an amazing woman, but she would tell me things like my violin playing was a gift from God. Okay, so, and I would, because sort of perhaps lacking a bit of social intelligence, I would sort of say this sort of stuff to my friends, you know. I was like, yeah, my violin plays a gift from God, and you know, I got the piss taken out, and I didn't understand why people were taking the piss. So anyway, I continued to believe, and then slowly, well, then I got into drugs, like a lot of teenagers all across the world, but I think it's sort of certainly quite a prevalent thing within UK youth. Started dabbling with it was cigarettes first, and then cannabis, around the age of 13, 14. And then that sort of progressed onto other drugs, LSD, speed, and then you know, I never sort of saw any of this use of drugs as anything to do with spirituality. It was more you know, the normal kind of doing things that, you know, that your friends want to do, and just yeah, just having fun, recreational use. And then in 1997, I had, before I went to Reading University to do my music degree, I and my friends took a really big, sizable dose of magic mushrooms that we picked from a field near Cowbridge in South Wales. And it was a really heavy night. You know, looking back, it was an amazing evening from my perspective. That led on to, I mean, you can go into that in more detail if you like later, but it was that journey that I went on that night that kind of opened my mind to the power of psychedelics, but I didn't quite understand how at the time. So I think that episode, plus my having 3 older brothers and you know, just the normal sibling low-level bullying that goes on, and I love my 3 brothers to bits, like that, everything's cool, but you know, just normal sort of sibling stuff. My mum and dad divorcing when I was 2, you know, there were bits and pieces that went on. I struggled with childhood. I think I just didn't, I never sort of felt like I really was very good at sort of making and maintaining friendships. So I don't know, I was struggling. I think that was probably like why I did why I sort of did these drugs. Like it was often feeling like if I do these things, it will make me cool and people will like me. So what I realize now is that just it's not the case. So you know, don't do drugs to make yourself cool is my advice to anyone listening. You know,
sorry, I was just going to say, I suppose as well, like, I don't know about you, but for me, when I was at school, like the education around like plant medicine or drugs was, there wasn't any. So nobody, like, you heard these words, but there was no information out there about either working with them or, you know, it was all just very much like, well, if you take drugs, then you're a druggie and that's it. So I don't know if that's how you sort of felt as well around that time, whether, like you said, you took them because you wanted to fit in and be cool, but like, did you read up anything about them, or was it just a case of like, yeah, I'll just have that and I'll try that? Or
I didn't read anything. It was very much do what my friends are doing, and also we had like older siblings that would, you know, teach us how to skin up or you know, just sort of show us the way a little bit, but there wasn't any kind of really well organized established group that could kind of show you the way to use medicine, which I believe a lot of these medicines, these psychedelic medicines, are tools for healing. But yeah, there was no one. It was very much like recreational use. Take it for fun, take it for partying, which I'm not like wholly against. You know, I'm not anti-recreational. I just, you know, it's like with alcohol, you know, because it's so widely available and legal, you know, if you're lucky, you've got adults in your life that are very responsible with it and you know, show you responsible use, and yeah, you just don't get that. Well, some people get that with drugs. Some people have parents that are very open-minded and will show their kids the way. Others, you know, obviously the majority are just like, have bought the narrative that's been going on since 1971 with the Misuse of Drugs Act and the war on drugs that's started by Reagan. So most people have bought that narrative, haven't they? That drugs are bad, just say no, it will make you go crazy, it will, you know, if you might end up giving birth to a frog type sort of, you know. I think that was an actual story that was out. I think I heard Professor David Nutt talk about that on one of his interviews. That was the media story in America, I think. So the media got right behind that war on drugs message. So yeah.
So you had this big mushroom journey. So like you said, it was an amazing experience. So what, like, did that impact your life? Did it change anything? Could you go back to being you after that? What happened after your mushroom?
Well, I think what happened was I had like this you know, I had this ego, I say it was ego death because that's sort of quite a hip term, isn't it? But everything went white in that journey. Everything just went completely white. It was like white noise, just a white sound, and I had died in that trip. And then I woke up, and it was, you know, I was a bit traumatized, to be honest. I didn't know. I went into it naively. I was quite greedy. I don't know what drove me to want to just do that. I was obviously trying to escape. I wasn't very happy, I think, with who I was. And I think that's what drove a lot of my drug use. It was trying to escape, which is a common story, isn't it?
Yeah. So
you know, I'd love to sort of say I led to this wonderful blooming, and everything's been amazing ever since. But it wasn't like that at all. So, and this is the kind of interesting thing where, so 2 years after that, I was 2 years into my music degree, and I was smoking a lot of marijuana, not really putting much effort into my music degree. I was getting by, but really not doing enough, really. I wasn't. And you know, I was doing what I thought was the right thing to do, like you know, just have lots of buns, smoke lots of weed, and everything will work out, sort of thing. But you know, funnily enough, they do want assignments to be handed in, and if you don't get it done, you get chucked off the course. So anyway, it was all very stressful. I remember I was trying to get a composition done. You know, just writing out the manuscript, and I ended up staying up for sort of three nights in a row, and I think that just sort of plus kind of just having not done a lot of work, smoking a lot of weed, it led to it. You know, I mean, it led to this psychotic break, basically. And then, you know, sort of GP gets involved, you know, the university GP, who she was absolutely brilliant. But you know, my girlfriend at the time, my mum was involved, and it all became it was all decided that my psychosis was a direct result of smoking cannabis. That was sort of the understanding. You know, stop smoking cannabis and your psychosis will disappear. That was the received wisdom. Is that the right way of putting it? So, you know, I did as I was told. I had to take a year off uni. Went back home to South Wales to live with my mum, and got put on antipsychotic medication, olanzapine. I think I was on an antidepressant as well, Seroxat or fluoxetine, I can't remember now. You know, just and completely stopped smoking weed, and started reading the Bible again. And you know, sort of slowly recovered in a way. I remember I was seeing a psychiatrist in South Wales called Dr. Scorer. He sort of signed me off one day and just sort of said, yeah, you're better. You don't need to see me anymore. And he said, try and lay off the weed, but you don't have to give it up completely, is what he said. Which I remember always thinking, oh, that's all right then. So, but I did stay off it at the time being, but then tried it again, and then basically over the course of four years, I had 4 or 5 psychotic episodes, which, you know, did always seem to be instigated by cannabis use. So, you know, I'm not completely anti this idea that cannabis is the you know, can be a cause of psychosis, but I can't see that it is all down to that. I think a lot of the problems that I suffered with were actually to do with my having not dealt, the fact that I hadn't dealt with a lot of psychological stuff. Yeah, so yeah, I can't continue to accept the idea that it was all just cannabis induced psychosis. I think I just think there's stuff that I hadn't dealt with, you know, like that I've stuff that I have dealt with now through well, to be honest, the main thing that really helps me with my mental state now is yoga. I've been practicing yoga for 13 years now. Not religiously, to be fair. My wife's a yoga teacher. She's an occupational therapist as well. And yeah, she's been amazing, sort of teaching me all sorts of things, from, like, you know, mindfulness and sort of elements of Buddhism, CBT, and then yoga is the main thing, I would say. But it's been in the last year where I've really kind of started practicing daily, and yeah, that's been it's just been an amazing turnaround for me, just in terms of, so I mean, I suppose this brings me right up to date with where I am spiritually now, where I'd spent like I'd spent a good 10 years completely rejecting the idea of God. So quite a militant atheist, you know, like anti-theist almost, very, you know, very following the lead of Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, and Christopher Hitchens. I don't know if you'd sort of heard of them or read up on them.
Dawkins, but I haven't heard of the rest of them now.
So that they were like the sort of known as the Four Horsemen of atheism, if you like. They really kind of rejected the Christian God, if you like. And also they went further to say that it was the cause of lots of issues. Now, I suppose I haven't completely rejected a lot of what they say, but where I've turned around is in my understanding of what God is, and this has been really helped along with psychedelics and yoga. One thing I would say is, for anyone sort of listening who's considering taking any psychedelics, establish a really good strict regime, routine, ritual of self-care, and it, you know, whatever that may be. It doesn't have to be yoga, but could be qigong, or, you know, some you know, Wim Hof method, holotropic breathing, whatever it is, you know, establish your, you know, your participation with life fully before jumping in, because I think this is where a lot of people go wrong, and this is where I think I went wrong. I think my psychosis, in fact, was almost like a delayed response to the psychedelic journey I had in '97, which the cannabis exacerbated, and the lack of understanding of my childhood and what that was all about. Yeah. So yeah, I think if I turn back the clock, I would have liked to have established a really good understanding of who I was and what life is, and just sort of psychology in general, and, you know, the machinations of the mind and body and how it's all connected. If I'd had a better understanding of all those things, I think then I perhaps wouldn't have ended up with psychotic depression, or whatever label you want to give it.
Yeah.
So go on.
I was just going to say, it's really interesting, because I think, you know, like you said, in terms of having those foundations and those rituals in place, I think is really important, you know, and it's something that sort of, like, when I've been sharing about microdosing or having the mushroom tea or whatever sort of psychedelic you're choosing to work with, it's like that one thing isn't going to heal you or help you alone. You need to have these other things in place to integrate it. So like you said, whether it's mindfulness or yoga or journaling, meditating, etc. And I think when you've had that practice and you've got an established practice, it is easier then after your experience to carry on with that, rather than just going, oh, you know what, I'm just going to do it, and then trying to integrate afterwards, or trying to establish a practice afterwards. Because like for myself, even after my experience, like, I felt I knew who I was before my experience, but I still had 5 weeks where I was like, what the fuck is going on? Who am I? What am I doing? What's life about? And, you know, it took me like 5 weeks to really integrate everything afterwards, even though I had support and I had the tools. So I can sort of see how, like, for yourself, if you hadn't done any healing work, you know, when you were younger, like you said, how maybe the GPs turned around and said, oh, it's the cannabis that's doing it, but actually it's maybe unhealed trauma, like you said, which is just coming to the surface, and the cannabis is just helping that to maybe sort of rise, if you like, to be healed. So
Well, it feels very much like these experiences have led on to what I do now. For what, you know, whether you call it coincidence or Jungian synchronicity or whatever you want to call it, it's very much, I like to think that I had to go through those difficult experiences in order to get myself into a position where I can, you know, try and help more people, which, you know, which is an honorable thing to do. You know, I've been a qualified mental health nurse for 13 years. I've worked with all sorts of people from, I've worked in nurseries as well before I did my mental health nurse training. So I've worked with like babies all the way up, and then I've worked with elderly people in like a liaison psychiatry for older people team in a general hospital, and I think the oldest person I met was 101. Wow. So I've worked across the whole range of people, and yeah, it's an honor, really. So even though when I was really unwell in my year out from Reading Uni, like it's strange to think back to it, how unwell I was, you know, like, yeah, you know, suicidal. There were times where I thought I was God, times where I thought I was the devil. Really, really strange, delusional ideas, you know, thinking thinking the people were just driving cars around, very much like Truman Show. I don't know if you've seen that film.
Yeah.
It was as if everything was just
sure
being done. It was a show, yeah, just to sort of make me think it was real. So it was. I mean, it probably was just completely stolen from the Truman Show, that delusion. Yeah, like Glastonbury. I went to Glastonbury '99, which was the worst, the silliest thing I should say to have done when I was feeling unwell. It was, I think my friends thought it would help me, jolt me out of my issues, but it didn't. It kind of unfortunately kind of made things worse, or maybe it wouldn't have made much difference. Maybe that it would have been the same outcome, who knows. But when I was in Glastonbury, I ended up thinking I was walking around thinking there were helicopters beaming the insides of my body onto giant screens. Wow. For everyone to watch. Wow. So like really kind of, I mean, that's just like ego, isn't it? Like huge kind of ego problem there. So I don't know what's going on there, but scary, very scary.
Yeah, that does sound scary. How did you end up then becoming a founding member of the British Psychedelic Association? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I went to a conference last year, September, October time, for there's a company which you're probably aware of in the Netherlands called Synthesis, that runs psychedelic retreats, and yeah, they were running this conference on the fundamentals of psychedelics. It was run over a weekend. I applied. I got a sort of scholarship fund to do that. I think it was like £500 to do the course, to do the training, to attend the conference. So yeah, I went there. Amazing conference. Got to hear some big players in the psychedelic world talk, including Ros Watts and Dr. Robin Carhart Harris, and yeah, just one of the other attendees, I didn't meet her during the conference, but she contacted me earlier this year to ask if I was interested in joining a psychedelic book club that she was starting up, called the Psychedelic Safari Book Club. So this is Diane Elliott. So yeah, I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing, I'll definitely join up. Started attending those. The first book club the first book we studied was the Immortality Key by Brian Marescu.
I read that one.
That book.
Add that to my list.
The Immortality Key, amazing, incredible book, and yeah, I recommend that to everyone. I mean, it's basically, well, it just made me sort of go, right, okay, now I understand like Christianity and all religions really, where they're all coming from. The premise of the book is that most religions were had a psychedelic Eucharist in their sort of ceremonies, which had, and using psychedelics to sort of be with God or be with the spirit world, and commune with relatives that have passed. So it looks into like ancient death cults, Göbekli Tepe, I think that's how you pronounce it, in Turkey. Yeah, I won't go fully into it because I probably wouldn't be able to do a very good job of it, but it's an amazing book. Anyway, we studied that as our first book, and we had Brian Marescu, the author, join us for the last session as well, which was, so I got to like have a little chat with him as well, so that was amazing. But yeah, it's sort of a few weeks into the book club, Diane, who's the director of founding director of the British Psychedelic Association, she asked me if I'd like to become a founding member. So I was like, yeah, this is simple as that, really. She liked, I think she just liked how I was, I think.
So what's the premise of the Psychedelic Association? Like, what do you stand for? What do you do? How do you help people?
Yes, it's very early days at the moment. So, there's obviously a lot of other psychedelic groups, Psychedelic Society, the Institute of Psychedelic Therapists, and universities are starting to, lots of psychedelic societies in universities. So basically, I think Diane saw that there wasn't a British Psychedelic Association, where there are in other countries. You've got the CPA, or the Canadian Psychedelic Association. I think there's an American Psychedelic Association. So you do have them, but we didn't have one. So I think she just thought, well, we need one. So she made one. And the idea is that it's a hub for all the information regarding psychedelics. There's lots of information on the website, lots of news articles, but we're hoping to go sort of beyond that and start training as well. But ultimately there's ideas of possibly developing an actual space where like we've talked about community integration centers. There's a lot of talk about, you know, because there's this whole conversation going on in the psychedelic world at the moment between who's, you know, should it be just done within medicine, or should it just, you know, can it be elsewhere? And so we're sort of talking a lot about that in the association and on the board. And I think we're all quite unanimous in the idea that it shouldn't just be within medicine. And you know, we've got a couple of psychiatrists on the board, and I work in the NHS as well, so that even people within the medical world are not sort of wanting it just to be all within medicine. And I think that's right. You know, I think it's for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, these tools for healing have been used within communities, and it's you know, I think we need as a people to reclaim our right to use these gifts from the earth to help us you know, navigate the realities. My honestly held belief is that a lot of the suffering going on around the world is directly linked to the denial of people's ability to use these tools. I honestly think that's what's going on. I think given that psychedelics seem, I know more randomized controlled trials need to be done, because that's how we like to prove that something is worthwhile. But debate that. But yeah, given the fact that they seem to help such a wide variety of mental health problems, whether it's low-level depression, anxiety, or people with bipolar even. I know like studies won't, you know, retreats won't accept people with bipolar, but you know, ultimately I think we're going to see that these tools will help so many people. They just help people in so many different ways, whether you've got a mental health problem or whether you're just a healthy normal, which two terms I just detest, but I think they help. You know, they show you what you need, and if you're able to, like I said before, if you've got sort of good self-care, a good sort of you know, good relationship with mind, body and spirit, then you're going to be able to use these tools to improve your life in a myriad of ways. And I think everyone should have the right to explore their consciousness, basically.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is around sort of, you know, like for myself, before I had my journey, I hadn't read anything about psilocybin. I didn't know how it worked. I was just like, I'm just going to try, and that's it. But having like delved, if you like, I've gone into the psychedelic rabbit hole, you know, and just absorbed so much information afterwards, because I was like, I want to understand how these psychedelics are going to work with people, you know, and what they're going to do and what they're for, etc. So I think like you're right in terms of that I feel they can help everyone. But I think as well, it's like having that access as well to information, to knowledge, you know, to the right source as well. You know, I have heard like a few horror stories from people where they've gone on the dark web and they've bought something and they've had like really bad reactions. So it's about either, you know, finding someone that you know, that you trust, or reputable sources, or growing your own, or whatever that looks like. But I think it's really about just being informed, and I think that's part of like our one of our freedoms that's been taken away is that we haven't been allowed to maybe talk about it, to share, you know, and like we've both been on Clubhouse, haven't we, Phil, at the same time, you know, where there's so many conversations happening around psychedelics, and they're predominantly at the minute over in America, you know, where psilocybin's being decriminalized. But do you see, like, because what I can see, and I don't know if you can see this as well, is like whatever is happening at the minute in the US and what they're establishing, it is going to make its way over here. I don't know if you feel that with psychedelics. And I feel like we're sort of like talking now, listening to what they're doing over there and creating our own communities and societies and everything else, and becoming more prepared, if you like.
Yeah, well, this is what we need to do. And this is, you know, I wrote to the board of directors of the NHS trust I work for, saying that, like, it was a 2-page sort of letter saying that this is what's going on. I don't know if you're aware, but this is what's happening. You know, put lots of references in and said we need to prepare our services. Brilliant. We need to prepare mental health services, inpatient and outpatient. We need to become psychedelic assisted psychotherapy services.
Wow.
Community integration centers, whatever you want to call them. We need this, because this is what's gonna happen. It's going to be a paradigm shift in mental health care. Yeah. You know, people still, after 5 years of me banging on about the potential of psychedelics, still laugh at me when I mention psychedelics in mainstream mental health services, and I'm always just like, why are you laughing? This is happening. Yeah. You might not know about it, but it is happening. So I spend a lot of time talking to my colleagues about what's going on. We need to prepare. It was really lovely to see. So a few days ago, I posted a question on Facebook. There's a 30,000 strong mental health nursing group on Facebook. It's an international group. And I just said, any UK based nurses here interested in psychedelics for healing? And I've had nearly 70 responses now.
Oh wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah, just loads of nurses just going, yeah, really interested, yeah, sign me up, blah, 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 blah. So it's really cool. So I've invited all of them to join. So I run this like Psychedelic Practitioners UK Facebook group. Yeah. Which, and then part of that is I do a video call, fortnightly video call, complete, you know, free of charge. It's just trying to build up a network really, and try and get more people interested. So I've been doing that fortnightly video call for a few months now. It's a really, really lovely space where people can talk about what they want to talk about. It's not like the Fireside Project in America. It's not to sort of support necessarily people with their challenging journeys. It's more of a professional sort of peer support group, so to help practitioners or aspiring practitioners kind of kind of like peer supervision really. So yeah, massive response from all these nurses, and one of the comments was this Australian nurse who used to live in I think he trained as a mental health nurse here in the UK, and he's now in Australia, and he's just finished 4-month training program for psilocybin assisted psychotherapy.
Wow.
And Dr. Ben Sessa, who's a psychiatrist in Bristol with Awaken Life Sciences, he was one of the lecturers for this course. So, and I looked on their website earlier, and it looks amazing. This Australian, where is it now? I'm not going to be able to find it quickly enough, but it's here we go. mindmedicineaustralia.org.au, certified. So they do this course called CPAT, Certificate in Psychedelic Assisted Therapies, and I read through it earlier, and the course has been developed specifically with the objective of providing the clinical training necessary for existing qualified psychiatrists, psychologists, psychotherapists, GPs, physicians, mental health nurses, social workers, occupational therapists, drug and addiction specialists to work with patients utilizing psilocybin and MDMA therapeutically in clinical environments.
Wow, that's
and it's just like, you know, they've only just sort of started backing the psilocybin movement. You know, I think the Australian government's just put 15 million into research, so they're kind of quite behind, but they've got this. Someone's gone, yeah, this is going to happen, let's train up the mental health workforce like as quickly as possible. This needs to be happening here. So I shared that with the British Psychedelic Association board, and yeah, they're sort of very interested in it, and that's kind of, you know, possibly something we're gonna be doing, sort of, you know, offering some training in the future. We're also developing a code of ethics as well, which
that's
is
something that seems to be talked about quite a lot at the minute in the psychedelic world. Every time I'm joining like one of these clubhouse rooms about psychedelics, there's always someone who's mentioning ethics. And so how important do you feel ethics are for, I suppose, for the practitioners rather than for people who are choosing to take them?
I think it's one of the most important things. You know, we need, you know, we need to be able to trust people when people are entering into a vulnerable state, if you like. You need, you know, we need ethical guidelines for everyone working in psychedelics to abide by. I mean, everyone in their disciplines have ethical codes within their, you know, professional bodies, but yeah, none of those professional bodies obviously cover psychedelic journeying or MDMA assisted psychotherapy. So yeah, I think it's vitally important. I think everyone working in mental health is going to be, you know, already, you'd like to think, working within their ethical boundaries, if that makes sense anyway. But I suppose it's, you know, and I like to think that people that aren't, you know, medical professionals are also working ethically, and you know, but you're always going to get people.
There's always going to be one.
It's always,
I was going to say, because it's a bit like, my feeling is like, you know, when people decide they want to go off to Peru and have ayahuasca, etc., you know, I'm sure there's like hundreds of different shamanic practitioners over there, and you might get one that's like a bad penny, shall we say, do you know what I mean? But the rest of them will all be working ethically, will all have, like, you know, what they need and be doing it because it's something they feel called to do. And that's my feeling in terms of, like, you know, holding ceremonies or working with medicine. It's more a calling, you know, and it's something that you feel drawn to, and it's not easy, and it's not something, you know, for the faint-hearted, if you say. So if somebody's like, all right, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to pick a fortune, like if people are charging like thousands and thousands of pounds, you know, to me that would feel not right, because it's not that they're doing it, you know, yeah, it's not something that is to be made profit from. Does that make sense? That's my feeling.
Yeah, I think while we're living in a capitalist world, then everyone's got to make a living, so people will profit, and I don't necessarily think that if you're making a profit that means you're not a good practitioner, or that you're, that it's something you're not called. You can be called to this work and still make a living and live a comfortable life. I don't think everyone has to be, you know, just doing it all out of the goodness of their hearts.
Yeah, no, I just meant that I feel like when people see the potential of where an industry is going. So like, people have talked about a psychedelic like resurgence. So there may be people who see it as an opportunity to do something, but that they haven't trained in, they haven't maybe sort of read up on, that they haven't had their own experience, but they see it as maybe like a quick way of making like a buck. Do you know what I mean? Like a friend of mine,
Yeah.
like she said she went to an ayahuasca ceremony where there was like 60 people and there was like one person leading it and maybe 3 sitters for 60 people, and she just said she felt lost. There was no introductions, nobody knew each other, like nobody was introduced beforehand. She said she ended up just walking off and being like, I don't even know what I'm meant to be doing, and
Oh God.
for me, like, and yeah, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? I suppose it's about trusting your intuition as well, in terms of like, who's running the ceremony, have you met them, do you know them, are you going to have like some preparation time beforehand, will you have any integration afterwards, what does the ceremony look like? And I suppose it's all of that, being really transparent with people who are maybe looking to do this.
Yeah, and this is where I think the BPA has a role to play in providing that safe space where people can go and read up about what it's all about, and find out really what an ethical outfit looks like. And also, we're going to be really kind of highlighting how you don't have to go to Peru to kind of find yourself.
Yeah.
You can find yourself quite happily here in the beautiful rolling hills of the English countryside, or if you're in Scotland or wherever you are in the UK. We have we've got our lost, long lost ways of using the gifts of our land to commune with the other world. We need to bring back those practices, those shamanic practices, if you like. That's what our country's built on, really. Unfortunately, the Christian church wiped it all away back in 400 AD, around 400 AD, where the Catholic Church just decimated Eleusis in Greece, and then spent the next 2000 spent a lot of time going around destroying cultures, destroying psychedelic cultures, psychedelic shamanic yogic cultures. A lot of stuff was just wiped out in the name of God. And this is where everything's got mixed up within like lots of religions. I believe that this idea that the idea that you have to be a really good person throughout your life in order to be granted access to heaven when you die. This idea is just fundamentally wrong. I believe, and this is what's so amazing about psychedelics, is they help you access the truth, which is that you can be in heaven right here, right now on earth. You don't have to wait to die. And actually, my firmly held belief is that they can show you what comes after, which is absolutely beautiful. Just becoming, re-entering the one well, I see it as just, you know, you're not even re-entering, because you're already part of the whole universe. You are the cosmos. You are the power of the cosmos, which is what my yoga teacher says a lot. You know, you are the power of the cosmos. You don't need to get anywhere. You don't need to strive for anything. You're already there. You're already light. You're already love. You're already you know, an abundance of beauty, intrinsic beauty. You don't need to get anywhere. You're already there. So psychedelics help you realize that. You don't have to have psychedelics to help you realize that. Some people just seem to just get it, and you know, you don't need any. You don't necessarily need anything to help you understand that. If you you know, like a lot of people in the psychedelic space say, once you get the message, you hang up. You don't need to keep taking these things. That's the amazing thing. If you have a really amazing journey and it just kind of makes you go, oh my God, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. You know, you just get on with your day, do some jobs, keep busy, keep moving, put a smile on your face. And you know, eventually you die, and then you re-enter the cosmic light, and you know, carry on as you were before you were born.
It's like, this is like a transition, isn't it, where we're in this physical body and we're just going to wherever we're going back to where we started.
yeah That's so yeah.
So Phil, so if anybody wants to find out more about the British Psychedelic Association, have you got a website for that? Where's the best place?
So just
I can pop the links below.
I think it's British, British, I can't say British. British Psychedelic Association.org.
Awesome. And then if people want to find out more about your practitioner page, that's on Facebook as well, isn't it?
Yeah, Facebook, Psychedelic Practitioners UK. Yeah, and there's a few little questions you have to answer to get let in, but
cool.
Yeah.
So if anyone's interested in that as well, then they can come over and join that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Phil, for your time and your energy. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing more about what the British Psychedelic Association brings. And wishing you every success.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me to this. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil.
Take care.